Welcome to another episode of our Cornerstone Lesson Review. This week we're looking at Lesson 10 entitled Winsome and Then Some for March 9, 2019. Our key text: After she had given him a drink, she said, I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have had enough to drink. Genesis 24, verse 19. Now for the flashlight. It was a time of anxious thought with Eliezer. Important results not only to his master's household, but to future generations might follow from the choice he made. And how was he to choose wisely among entire strangers? Remembering the words of Abraham that God would send his angel with him, he prayed earnestly for positive guidance. In the family of his master, he was accustomed to the constant exercise of kindness and hospitality, and he now asked that an act of courtesy might indicate the maiden whom God had chosen. Taken from Patriarchs and Prophets, page 172. What do you think? Rank the following attributes from 1 being most important to 10 least important in the order you hope to find them in your future spouse. Kindness, honesty, attractiveness, contentment, optimism, selfishness, courage, self-confidence, humility, creativity. Why is your first choice so important to you? Who do you know who best embodies that trait? What person in the Bible exhibited this trait? Would you ever marry a person who did not have this trait? Why or why not? Did you know? Approximately half of marriages today are still arranged by the parents. Such was the custom in Abraham's day. Abraham was 140 years old. Sarah had died 3 years earlier when he arranged the marriage for his son Isaac. Abraham entrusted the matchmaking to his chief servant Eliezer. So solemn was this assignment, Eliezer placed his hand under Abraham's thigh to swear that Isaac's wife would not be found among the Canaanites. The thigh was considered the seat of generative power. So to put the hand under the thigh was to promise obedience to the one requiring the oath. Into the story. Abraham was now very old, and the Lord had blessed him in every way. He said to the senior servant in his household, the one in charge of all that he had, Put your hand under my thigh. I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I am living, but you will go to my country and my own relatives and get a wife for my son Isaac. Then the servant left, taking with him 10 of his master's camels. Then he prayed, Lord, may it be that when I say to a young woman, Please let down your jar that I may have a drink, and she says, Drink, and I'll water your camels too. Let her be the one you have chosen for your servant Isaac. By this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master. Before he had finished praying, Rebekah came out with her jar on her shoulder. The young woman was very beautiful, a virgin. No man had ever slept with her. She went down to the spring, filled her jar, and came up again. The servant hurried to meet her and said, Please give me a little water from your jar. Drink, my lord, she said, and quickly lowered the jar to her hand and gave him a drink. After she had given him a drink, she said, I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have had enough to drink. Then the man bowed down and worshipped the Lord, saying, Praise be to the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not abandoned his kindness and faithfulness to my master. Then Rebekah and her attendants got ready and mounted the camels and went back with the man. So the servant took Rebekah and left. Isaac brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he married Rebekah. So she became his wife, and he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. And this is taken from Genesis chapter 24, verses 1 to 4, 10, 12 to 19, 26, 27, 61, and 67. Out of the story. Read the story to note details that are new to you. Circle the different people in the story. Put a rectangle around the phrases that capture the main parts of the story. Underline the verse that you think contains the most important part of the story, and why. How does this story inform your own understanding of modern romance? What character qualities do you see in Abraham, Eliezer, Rebekah, and Isaac? What are the advantages or disadvantages of an arranged marriage? If this story were to be made into a motion picture, what title would you give it? Now for the punchlines. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Colossians 3, verse 23 and 24. If anyone slaps you on the cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Matthew 5, verse 39 to 41. If anyone is worried that he might not be acting honorably toward the virgin he is engaged to, and if his passions are too strong and he feels he ought to marry, he should do so as he wants. He is not sinning. They should get married. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 36. Honor marriage and guard the sacredness of sexual intimacy between wife and husband. God draws a firm line against casual and illicit sex. Hebrews 13, verse 4. He who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord. Proverbs 18, verse 22. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you must also love your wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Ephesians 5, verse 31 to 33. Further insight. Great care should be taken by Christian youth in the formation of friendships and in the choice of companions. Ellen White, The Adventist Home, page 443. Examine carefully to see if your married life would be happy. Let the questions be raised. Will this union help me heavenward? Will it increase my love for God? And this is taken from Ellen White, The Adventist Home, page 45. Now for the connecting to life or the daily sections of our lesson. Sabbath. Read Colossians 3, verses 23 and 24. Verse 23 says, Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord not for human masters. Verse 24, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward, it is the Lord Christ you are serving. The what do you think activity at the beginning of this lesson urged you to make choices about what attributes are most important to you in a future spouse. Why did you choose the top 3 you chose? What do you imagine will be the hardest quality to find in a spouse, and why? When you think about how your life unites with someone else's, how much do you think it matters that the key qualities in your list are present? Sunday. Read Ephesians 5 verses 31 to 33. For this reason, a man will leave his mother and father and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. As you read the story, what 3 insights did you gain by observing some of the details brought about by the out of the story questions? What do you think is the main reason this story is included in the Bible? What do you think God is trying to say to you in this story about love and marriage? Monday. Read Genesis 24 verse 19. After she had given him a drink, she said, I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have had enough to drink. In this week's lesson, Rebecca models the beautiful trait of offering a gesture of kindness and then some. Read the key text again and notice how she goes beyond the expected response. As Eliezer had prayed, someone would do. Do you believe Eliezer's prayer for someone who exhibited this quality was strange? When you look at the way Bible characters prayed specifically for certain events to occur, how do you feel about praying in a similar way? As you pray today, talk to God about a specific hope you have about your future spouse. Write out your prayer and keep it in a safe place so you can find it when you are making decisions about marriage. Tuesday, read 1 Corinthians 13 verse 4 and verse 5. Verse 4, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. Verse 5, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. In this week's flashlight section, Ellen White observes Eliezer's earnest desire to be guided by God in choosing a wife for Isaac. The decision was too pivotal for thoughtless choosing. Read the quote from Patriarchs and Prophets and notice that the qualities that governed the choice were kindness and hospitality. Why do you think that these attributes were so important to Abram's family? What decisions do you face that might affect the direction of your future? Who do you know today who enjoys a joyful marriage because they made good relationship decisions when they were young? Ask them about the qualities they sought in a marriage partner. Wednesday. Read the verses listed in the punchline section of this week's lesson and make a brief title heading for each verse. Which verse speaks especially to your life today? Why do you think this scripture stands out to you more than the others? As you reflect on how this passage pertains to you, think of a friend who might benefit from the same passage and pray for an opportunity to encourage them this week. Thursday. Read 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14 and 15. 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14 says, "Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness?" Verse 15, "What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever?" If you read chapter 15 in Patriarchs and Prophets, you will discover wonderful insights into this week's lesson. Make note of the new insights you gain from reading this chapter and how they illuminate the story for you. Also, listen for advice. What timeless principles do you see in the reading that would help you in any age, whether it be in Abraham's time or today? You're asked to put the insight and then the timeless principles. Finally, search the Bible for other Bible characters or stories and passages that give you insight into the topic of marriage. List the texts in your Bible and read them before you go on a date. As stated in the punchlines, he who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord. Proverbs 18 verse 22. This is true also for a young woman who finds a good man to marry. God truly intended for our joy to be complete, and part of that joy is experienced in our relationship with others. What aspects of this week's lesson were particularly helpful to you today? Write a thank you note to a couple that you know who have had a positive influence on your concept of marriage. Well, that wraps it up for this week. I look forward to that lively discussion on Sabbath. God bless. See you in the next episode.